To chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Thursday, October the 26th, 2023. This is program number 1080 and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. In addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can get us at our website. It is rcistlucia.com and you can also check us out on our YouTube feed. Just search for Radio Caribbean International on YouTube. You should be able to find that link and we are streaming there. And of course, please subscribe to that page. The number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. You can also message into that number as well or call in, whichever you so choose. Again, it is 724-0008. Now, some birthday greetings for today going out to Mr. Everestus Jamari. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we're hoping that you're having a splendid birthday celebration. And also sending birthday greetings out to Miss Leandra Lily Pinnell. Happy birthday to you, Leandra. And we do hope that you're having a wonderful, wonderful birthday. And also, we're sending some birthday greetings to Miss Kezia Alexander. Happy birthday to you. And we do hope that you're also enjoying your very special day. And it actually is being celebrated as well by former hopeful to the United States presidency and former First Lady Hillary Clinton. She turned 76 today. In the year 1863, on this day, a bit of history, international conference began in Geneva aimed at improving medical conditions on the battlefield. And that was the beginning of the Red Cross. In 1901, on this day, the first recorded use of a getaway car occurred after a holdup at a shop in Paris. 1977, on this day, saw the last natural case of smallpox discovered in Mersa district in Somalia, and it was considered the anniversary of the eradication of smallpox, the most spectacular success of any vaccination program. 1984, The Terminator, directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton, was released in the United States. And in 2019, on this day, a raid by U.S. Special Forces killed ISIS founder Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Syria. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. There's all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also black, that's and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grosile, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, we have for a very long time had a long-standing association with the mainland country, colony, territory. Of course, now it's a thriving country, that of Guyana. And that, of course, dates back way back to the times when Guyana was even seen as a El Dorado, a place for individuals to seek out fortune, to head into the interior of Guyana in search of minerals, in search of diamonds and gold. And certainly large number of St. Lucians, a large number of people from these islands sought to head to the Guianas, not just British Guiana, but also French Guiana and also Suriname, which is, of course, Dutch Guyana, and even into parts of Portuguese Guyana as well, that of parts of Brazil. There is also Guyana, which is sometimes known as Spanish Guyana, and that is in fact part of the eastern region of Venezuela. And so that entire region has been known as the Guianas for a very, very long time, and very, very forested, very dense forest. It's in fact one of the areas where you still have, one can say, true wilderness, untouched wilderness, and certainly from the perspective of the Caribbean community, is in fact the largest territory within the Caribbean community. And part of that territory has certainly been in dispute for a number of years now. And that dates into the colonial period, when you had the Spanish as well as the British claiming similar territories. And of course, sometimes you would think that these matters have been settled, but unfortunately there are still these outstanding claims. It is a similar situation in respect to parts of British Honduras or some Belize as well. And there are still claims there in terms of borders. And we see that quite often in terms of issues of border disputes. Right now, for instance, we have a significant dispute between Palestinians as well as Israelis over the issue of borders and the issue of territory. And in the case of Guyana, it's not that much different, although thankfully it has not been a highly contentious matter by way of actual wars being fought over territory. But the reality is still that Venezuela, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, still lays claim to perhaps the vast majority of Guyana, and certainly the parts of Guyana that are west of the Essequibo River, a significant river there, which of course many Guyanese will boast that the St. Lucia could fit easily into the estuary of the Essequibo River. And most of that territory west of the Essequibo towards the Venezuelan, well, what would be the Venezuelan border in respect of Guyana, in its opinion, is in fact undeveloped and has not really been touched. And that is partly a deliberate defense mechanism by Guyana in some respects, to be able to have this green, this impervious green buffer of sorts to prevent any potential invasion. So there are not very many, there are no roads really in most of that territory. Transportation would be largely dependent on the river systems, such as the Essequibo and the Mazaruni and other rivers that flow into that area. And so that has been a situation for quite a long time. But every now and then we hear some flare-ups, and we heard one quite recently in terms of Venezuela making some claims again on that matter. CARICOM has issued a statement, and of course CARICOM is in fact headquartered in the Guyanese capital of Georgetown. And once upon a time, Georgetown was seen as the likely capital of the entire British West Indies, and perhaps part of that was why they, in fact, we decided to put that headquarters there for the CARICOM. And anyways, they've made a statement, and it reads as follows. The Caribbean community notes the decision of the Venezuelan National Assembly to conduct a popular referendum on defending Venezuela's claim of the Essequibo. CARICOM further notes that 2 of the questions approved to be posed in the referendum, if answered in the affirmative, would authorize the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to embark on the annexation of territory, which constitutes part of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and to create a state within Venezuela known as Guyana Essequibo. CARICOM reaffirms that international law strictly prohibits the government of one state from unilaterally seizing, annexing, or incorporating the territory of another state. An affirmative vote, as aforesaid, opens the door to the possible violation of this fundamental tenet of international law. It is to be emphasized that the land and water in question, the Essequibo region in Guyana, comprises more than 2/3 of the whole of Guyana itself. CARICOM notes that the language of 2 questions approved to be posed in the referendum seeks an affirmation and implementation of Venezuela's stance on the issue, quote, by all means according to and with the law, end quote. It is open to reasonable persons to conclude that by all means this includes means of force or war. CARICOM earnestly hopes that Venezuela is not raising the prospect of using force or military means to get its own way in this controversy over territory. After all, it has been the long-standing position of Latin America and Caribbean countries, including Venezuela, that our region must remain a zone of peace. Meanwhile, CARICOM insists that the referendum proposed by Venezuela has no validity, bearing, or standing in international law in relation to this controversy. The referendum is a purely domestic construct, but its summary effect is likely to undermine peace, tranquility, security, and more in our region. CARICOM reiterates its support for the judicial process and expresses the hope that Venezuela will engage fully in that process before the International Court of Justice, which has determined that it has the jurisdiction in the case brought before it to determine the validity of the 1899 arbitral award with Venezuela questions. The court's final decision will ensure a resolution that is peaceful, equitable, and in accordance with international law. And that was coming from the Caribbean community. Now, of course, Guyana, as I've mentioned, is, like most of the Guyanas, one would say very scarcely populated. Not a very large population, based on the size that it has. It's nearly 83,000 square miles. It's about the size of the United Kingdom, which has a population of upwards of 60 million people. Guyana does not even have 1 million people, about 750,000 or so. And that really has been the situation with most of these countries in the Guyanas. Still very, very important in terms of our protection and conservation of the environment. In some instances, forest cover is close to over 90% of the land area. Very important in terms of those resources, in terms of the importance of its role in terms of climate change and dealing with that. But as well, as we have seen, it has shown that the Guyana Shield is also really valuable in terms of oil and gas. And Guyana continues to be one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing country in the world, which it has in fact been for a couple of years now. And that has largely been to the ramping up of the export of oil from some significant oil finds that have been identified and are continuing to be identified in the waters of Guyana. And we, of course, also know that Venezuela itself is exceedingly wealthy when it comes to oil resources, being, in fact, the country that has the largest oil reserves in the world, and certainly has enough oil at its current rate of extraction for hundreds of years. So this situation, let us hope, does not in any way escalate, and hopefully will become much ado about nothing, but certainly, and rightfully so, we should be looking at it and ensuring that whatever diplomatic means can be utilized, that these are brought to bear on this current situation. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Jugos, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in is 4523046. Again, 4523046. As well as our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Just a quick announcement, a release coming from the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority, dated today, and that is a change in collection contractor. And the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority wishes to inform residents of Ravine Makok, Labon,
on November
Deramo, Plateau, Lague, Pebouche, Bogis, Kabish, Balata, Greenview, Bocage, Ravine Chabot, and Upper Waterworks Road of a change in the waste collection contractor serving this route. Given the change, residents may experience adjustments in the collection times. All are encouraged to place their waste out by 7 o'clock in the morning, as the collection will be undertaken between 7 o'clock or 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. The authority reassures residents that it is working closely with the contractor to ensure an efficient waste collection service is provided to the community. And if you would request or require more information, please contact the authority via the mediums listed below, and you can do so via WhatsApp through 724-5544, again 724-5544, as well as 285-2762. That is 285-2762. You can also check them out on Facebook. It's SLSWMA. SLSWMA, which is St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority, the acronym, and as well on their website, that is www.sluswma.org. That's again www.sluswma.org. And again, that is a release coming from the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority. And of course, they're responsible for waste collection, and an indication there that some communities are going to be are experiencing a change in the contractor who is responsible for those regions, and they will include communities of Ravine Makok, Labon, Deramo, Plateau, Lague, Pebouche, Bogis, Kabish, Balata, Greenview, Bocage, Ravine Chabot, and Upper Waterworks Road. Now, putting that aside for the time being, we've also been hearing quite a lot of discussion of late on the matter of what we've termed impacts, which is really what came out of a Royal St. Lucia Police operation called Operation Restore Confidence. And you recall that goes back to the period of the year 2010 into 2011, when that police operation was declared by the government of the day, and because they, of course, the country was facing a rising crime wave, and that was in fact the response to dealing with that crime wave. As a result of that, however, we saw between over a period of a year or so, nearly 12 police shootings and homicides as a result of police killings. And so that prompted a fair degree of concern as to whether the police was using force appropriately and fairly in these matters. Of course, once there is a police shooting, it requires for a coroner's inquest to be held into the matter to ensure that it was, again, a fair action taken by the respective officers. It also prompted the government later on, during the Kenny Anthony administration, to respond. And that partly was in response to, of course, the imposition of or application of the provisions of the Leahy Law, which is a U.S. Piece of legislation at the federal level, dealing with the matter of the use of force by military and paramilitary entities within countries which the United States in some form or fashion has diplomatic relations with. And so what occurred was that the Leahy Law effectively prohibits the United States to provide any assistance or military assistance or security assistance to any country where there may be a belief that that country is or has engaged in human rights violations. So the only way that could be suspended, so to speak, was to therefore find some resolution or investigation into that matter. And so, of course, it had implications for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. We saw certain actions taken at that point in time. We saw the pulling off of assistance, direct assistance to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Of course, the United States has been providing significant amount of assistance to a number of disciplined forces across the Eastern Caribbean and in fact the entire Caribbean basin, as part largely, of course, in a lot of it in response to making interdictions into the drug trafficking, the narco trafficking that goes on in our waters and through our territories. And so that certainly had a major impact on some of the operations of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force by way of not having some of the resources they would normally have had access to. In came, of course, the desire to resolve that matter, and we saw the introduction of what was known as the impacts investigation. And, of course, CARICOM Impacts. Impacts is the implementation agency for the Caribbean dealing with crime and security, that acronym Impacts. And they were brought in as an independent entity to undertake investigations of these extrajudicial killings in question. And of course, since then, that is where we have now heard of this matter of the impacts. And so, of course, depending on who is speaking about the matter, they will speak about impacts, or they may speak about Operation Restore Confidence. And since then, of course, there was a submission of a report. Now, as you would also know, but if there was in fact any criminal liability or culpability in any such matter with respect to these shootings, that would have to be determined by the constitutional office holder who makes such determinations. And that, of course, is the Director of Public Prosecutions. And since then, we've seen one DPP leave, another one has taken over. And by about, I think it's July, just before a few days before the election, according to then Prime Minister Honorable Alan Shastney, the matter of impacts had been settled, had been resolved, according to him, on the basis that they had negotiated with the U.S. authorities, and so therefore they would now be able to move on, and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force would be able to move on with respect to impacts. We're seeing, of course, that perhaps that may not quite have been the case when he made that statement on the eve of the general election, because we also saw before that as well another statement being issued by the Director of Public Prosecutions giving an update on the matter of the inquests in question and the his own treatment of these matters, looking into it. And the indication was that some of the matters were looked into and they were deemed to have been in keeping with the law, but there were still some outstanding killings which still had to be determined by his office. And so that is effectively where we were with respect to the matter of that investigation. We have not yet since heard any update from the Director of Public Prosecutions, as far as I'm aware, as to the outstanding investigations of these extrajudicial killings, well, alleged extrajudicial killings, which I should say. And so it is still within his court and within his remit to give clarity on some of these matters. And I would like to believe that we would hopefully get some further indications on that matter. But let's take in a call at this time before we head to our weather report. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'd like to ask a question. Why is it the Director of Public Prosecution was I think it was put there in 2017. Why is it we never heard a word from him, not until sometime in 2021, I think it's just before election?
Yeah, it was pretty late. I can't remember I think it was July or so. Yeah,
September, July.
It was
2017. That's when he became Director of Prosecution, but not until 2021 he spoke.
I don't know. I'm not sure why that is the case, caller. I mean, even with respect to what we saw in the impacts investigation, when it was the report was first submitted by Impacts and it was sent to the then Director of Public Prosecutions. It took a while too before we actually got a response on that matter as well. And we can well appreciate, caller, that these DPPs are no doubt under a lot of pressure. They've got lots of cases to deal with. They've got lots of investigations to tackle, and of course it's quite a lot to do, right? And there's no getting away from that. But these matters,
important.
But these matters are
important. So you should have at least enlightened people on strides made.
And these matters, and I think at the time, even when in the first instance, there was an offer made by the government if there was need for additional resources to be provided to the Crown Prosecution Service, that would be made available. I'm not sure if those offers have been taken up, But I know that there were statements made publicly by the then Prime Minister Anthony that so it could be made available, and of course I would assume that all other prime ministers would ensure that if the DPP requires additional resources to deal with this particular matter, that those resources will be made available, because of course the implications are pretty dire. I mean, they're impacting the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, which is your principal entity responsible for law and order, and so it is really important that the matter is dealt with.
And what I also understanding now is that the Director of Public Prosecution seems to have the danger of his own political powers, that he can override anything, including the special prosecutor, if he chooses.
Well, I'm not sure that we can say that he has political powers. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
But he's DPP and no political powers.
Oh, no. You ring a little facetious caller. But yes, I mean, the Constitution provides for that office to have some very unique powers within the context of our system of governance, of law and order. And that individual is the one who holds that office, is the determining agent whenever it comes to criminal matters. He or she will determine whether, in fact, a matter should be brought forward to be tried, brought forward to the courts or not. So, yes, a significant level of power exists within that office. However, you mentioned the special prosecutor.
Yeah.
Now, from what I recall of the legislation with respect to the special prosecutor, that individual would be looking at both matters within a civil jurisdiction as well as a criminal jurisdiction.
But then
so,
I understood the Director of Public Prosecutors still have more powers.
Well, the Director of Public Prosecution, from what I recall, would still have to, yes, sign off on whether, in fact, the matter is criminal or not.
Yeah.
Right? So the special prosecutor could take or look towards redress through the courts, through the civil court, but not through the criminal division. So yes, if it is going to be a criminal action, then yes, the DPP would still have to sign off, because that, under our Constitution, he or she is in fact effectively the arbiter to make that determination.
So then why is it that a country have to pay people such a big salary, and then they do not answer to the state? Because things like that, with a position like that, you should at least once in a while, even there's a press conference, give an idea of strides that have been made. You're not getting nothing.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that matter, caller, that I think it is incumbent on these entities, especially these constitutional offices, whether it's the Director of Audit. The Director of Audit does, one can say there's a requirement that they submit reports on an annual basis. But in the case of the Office of the DPP, the Crown Prosecution, I'm not sure that it is enshrined in that way, that they have to come forward and report as to the work that they're doing. So, I mean, I guess if they're minded to do so, they may, but I'm not sure that there's...
But then how will people know if they do not say?
Right, and I think there really has to be some level of accountability by these officers to allow people to know, well, this is what we've done, these are the number of cases that we've handled, this is our success rate, these are the number of cases we have currently within our portfolio to tackle, this is the backlog, these are the number of staff we have, to give a sense as to the challenges as well. Because, of course, quite often the public can be, they can ask questions and they may not know, and they'll speculate.
Yeah,
and they won't
speculate. You'll assume you're doing this because of that. Yes.
Yeah, so I very much agree with you that these entities, as with all government agencies, they do need to make it their business every so often, whether it's on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis, to engage the public and to allow the public to know
Yeah.
what's going on, how they're working, how they're progressing, what their challenges are, because otherwise, they can just become political footballs for one, people just blame them for everything that's going wrong, so the public communication, that is really, really important, very much so. So let's hope that we can get some of that. Definitely, caller.
All right, thanks.
Thanks very much for that contribution.
All right, thank you.
And, of course, we're going to head across to our weather report at this time.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Hurricane season can be unpredictable, but your business doesn't have to be. In the face of adversity, you need a partner that goes above and beyond. Choose the path of resilience and certainty with C&W Business. Through disaster recovery as a strategy solution, C&W Business will safeguard your critical data, maintain seamless communication channels, and help you bounce back faster than ever before. Visit our website, cwcbusiness.com/myopenbusiness to learn more. Remember, a safe business is an open business.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's what, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath, and Flow. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from between the southeast and east-southeast, near 12 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and variable or calm at times. The weather mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations, and isolated thunderstorms. Residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to be vigilant and exercise caution. Also, there's an advisory in areas raised. The small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution from tonight due to locally rough seas. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles: partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook: moisture and instability associated with a trough system over the Eastern Caribbean, together with the intertropical. I'm going to read this one more time. The tropical weather outlook: moisture and instability associated with a trough system over the Eastern Caribbean, together with a whoa. So many words in there. I'm going to read it one more time. The tropical weather outlook: moisture and instability associated with a trough system over the Eastern Caribbean, together with the intertropical convergence zone, will continue to cause cloudiness and scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the region during the forecast period. Another surface trough located over the western tropical Atlantic is drifting slowly westward. This system is expected to affect our region from tomorrow into Saturday. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And this was a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath, and Flow.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Hurricane season can be unpredictable, but your business doesn't have to be. In the face of adversity, you need a partner that goes above and beyond. Choose the path of resilience and certainty with C&W Business. Through disaster recovery as a strategy solution, C&W Business will safeguard your critical data, maintain seamless communication channels, and help you bounce back faster than ever before. Visit our website, cwcbusiness.com/myopenbusiness to learn more. Remember, a safe business is an open business.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. We're going to head to the phone lines to take in another call. Of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon. Hello, caller. Hello. Looks like we're having some issues with that line. Hopefully that individual could perhaps try to call back. It looks like, okay, we seem to have lost it. So apologies for that. But of course, then again, the number is 452-3046. Let's go back to the phone lines. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hello, good afternoon, colleague.
Hi, good afternoon, caller. How are you?
I'm okay. Was looking to fix the pipe in her call, the pipe under the road.
Ah, okay. I think I drove up there.
Yes, I saw you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I saw you.
Okay.
I wanted to stop you.
Okay.
You passed so fast.
Oh,
but then the same place they fixed.
Yes. Oh, looks like, well, sorry to hear about that. The person lost connection there, but hopefully they can call back. Of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Now, of course, we have Journée Creole coming up this coming weekend, and there has been an appeal coming from the Forestry Department warning against the issue of wild meat. Now, I know there's been a lot of issues, of course, we've seen in the past dealing with a lot of seafood and sea creatures are often looked for at this time, and some of them are, of course, protected and they are controlled in terms of the seasons that one can actually get them. So I believe, for instance, the sea urchins right now, I think that season is closed. The matter of turtles is, also, of course, also another very touchy one. And there has been some limited allowance for that. But, of course, there are other creatures on land, terrestrial wildlife, which is sometimes sought after, especially around Journée Creole. And a release coming from the Forestry Department reads as follows. In light of Creole Heritage Month, the Forestry Department wishes to inform the general public that permission must be obtained from the department in order to take or hunt protected wildlife, such as the agouti and manikou, also known as the opossum. These species are listed under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act as fully protected wildlife and are therefore not permitted for hunting without a valid permit. Section 17E states that a person commits an offense who exposes or offers for sale or purchase any protected wildlife or any part of such wildlife, or the eggs, fry, or young thereof without a valid permit. The department further notes that under Section 4 of the Act, any person who commits an offense under this Act is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $5,000 or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 12 months. In short, Forestry wishes to inform the general public that the sale of wildlife meat is strictly illegal without a valid permit or license. Wildlife species such as the St. Lucia iguana are particularly vulnerable and face the risk of extinction due to the restricted and degraded nature of their natural habitat. For instance, the St. Lucia iguana faces many threats, including habitat loss and predation by invasive species such as mongooses, which feed on iguana eggs and hatchlings. It is therefore our duty as St. Lucians to protect this unique species which is found only in St. Lucia. The Forestry Department over the years has engaged in educating the public of the importance of protecting our vulnerable endemic wildlife species of birds, reptiles, and mammals, among others, which play an invaluable role in maintaining the balance and richness of our natural environment. Anyone who is involved in the illegal hunting, sale, and purchasing of protected wildlife is urged to cease such activities immediately, or if caught, will be charged under the Wildlife Protection Act. And of course, if you would request more information or require more information, you can contact the Chief Forestry Officer, Mr. Alwyn Donnelly. That number is 717-3919. Again, 717-3919 or 468-5634. 468-5634. Also, the Assistant Chief Forest Officer, Mr. Pius Haynes, at 518-7154. 518-7154. That release coming from the Ministry of Agriculture. And of course, it's a very timely release because we've been hearing lots of issues with respect to the availability of food for Journée Creole. And of course, within that context, we may very well find, and some people may think that, they want to have a very exotic menu for Journée Creole and may very want to have to go hunting to get some wild meat like agouti, like manikou. Of course, the opossum, manikou, is a lot more prevalent than the agouti. To be honest, I don't think I've ever actually seen an agouti in the wild. Only in up at the Union Zoo. But certainly it is something that we need to be mindful of as we see the issue of loss of these species is affecting many countries around the world. Let's take a call via WhatsApp at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yes, good afternoon. As you just gave the notices there from forestry, I was wondering if any studies have been done to determine whether there are any harmful pathogens in wild meat. I mean, what if, you buy wild meat and it's not well cooked and then you come down with an illness that, the doctor's not familiar with? Just something to consideration. We don't want to start the next pandemic.
That's a very interesting question, caller. Very, very pointed one. Thanks very much for raising that issue. And of course, it is somewhat of a risk. There are lots of unknown species that sometimes these creatures are feeding off. We don't know whether they in fact can be passed on to human beings. There's a possibility of that. And we've seen and heard of the issues, of course, as you rightfully pointed out, of how matters like COVID-19 were potentially brought into the human space. And there have been lots of suggestions. At one point, it was the suggestion that it was meat from bats at a wild meat market that could have potentially been that crossover point. And so a lot of unknowns there. And certainly it is a challenge that we do have to think about in terms of our food cycle, that food chain that we want to be the top of, the apex of. We seem to have lost that call. But certainly that issue is something that we do need to be a little bit cognizant of. And of course, just the quality of our food in general, whether it's coming from unknown sources in the wild or even whether it's coming from industrialized farms, and quite often thousands and thousands of miles away from us. The quality of food is definitely something that we've got to be on the ball with. Now, as we speak, of course, of the issue of wildlife, just over in Dominica quite recently, the status of what was perhaps very well known as a Dominican delicacy, that of mountain chicken, which is really a species of frog. They, of course, have pointed out that it may very well be on the brink of extinction. And this is coming, there was, I think, a story coming out of a UK paper, The Guardian, looking at just that issue, and something that had been relatively prevalent less than a decade or so ago is not being seen or found in the wild. And they're pointing to the significant issues that our wildlife face. It sometimes has to do with the habitat loss, of course, as we heard with respect to the St. Lucia iguana. They are largely, their range has been reduced largely to the northeast coast, and primarily in areas such as Louvet, Caides, and as well Granans to some extent. And these creatures have very clear habits. They live in one region or one area for part of the year, and in the case of iguanas, they would normally be up in trees in the upper reaches of the watershed, and they come down to the beaches into the sand to actually give birth. That's where when I say give birth, to lay eggs, and that's their system. And so we see that a lot of these species have these very well defined patterns and how they move around and what they feed on and what times of the year. And so, of course, once you're seeing the implications of development and land clearance, that's a major issue. Of course, we've spoken about the other wildlife like mongooses being a predator to these creatures, eating on their eggs, but also other creatures like pets, feral cats, for instance, and wild dogs. If they are dropped in these places, quite often some people take that unfortunate practice of wanting to just drop unwanted animals, unwanted pets in areas where they figure they will somehow fend for themselves. And the fending for themselves is quite often by eating off the wildlife, and that has a major impact on the loss of wildlife. And so it's a major challenge in the management of these spaces to be able to ensure that they can be, in fact, protected. The human beings have certainly changed the landscape of the world considerably. And there was a very interesting infographic that one can find on a website called Our World in Data. And I actually saw it being brought forward at somebody who was at a conference posted this infographic, but it's available online for everybody to see. And it speaks to the footprint of human beings and our food chain at this point in time in terms of the issues of mammals. Now, you would recall, of course, in the whole hierarchy of the animal kingdom, we fall into that classification of warm-blooded creatures, which are mammals, and we tend to be furry. We have certain looks that are characteristic of many mammals. We are quadrupeds. We usually have four limbs, and so on and so forth. And they were saying that if you look at the entirety of all the world and the mass of each of these creatures, that there are 7 billion human beings or so, and growing. And you look at the entire population of all mammals around the world, what they're saying is that human beings And the livestock that human beings keep for food, largely, they make up 96% of all mammal biomass in the world. So in other words, if you looked at, and you think, for instance, a human being compared to an elephant, for instance, or a giraffe, or even larger creatures like whales, for instance, we think of these massive creatures out there. But if you look at all of them and their weights and their populations, and we actually tabulate in totality, believe it or not, human beings represent nearly 34% of the mass of all mammals that exist in the world. And that is a considerable amount, but gives you the indication of the literal footprint, the literal physical quantity that we represent in the world. And after human beings, well, in fact, the largest of any one category happens to be cows, right? And cows or cattle, they make up about 35% of all the mammal biomass in the world. And that is not too surprising because cows tend to be pretty large animals relative to human beings. But they actually make up about 35%. Pigs are also in that mix, and they make up about 12% of all biomass, mammal biomass. Then you have sheep. So you're looking at about 3% for sheep, another 3% for goats. The impact for buffalo, interesting enough, is about 5%. So that suggests that there's still a considerable population of buffalo out there on the Great Plains. But a lot of that, of course, as well, may very well be in controlled areas. They make up 5% of all the mammal biomass. Then you have creatures, our pets, less than 1%. So all the dogs and the cats, and probably the hamsters, they make up less than 1%. Camels make up less than 1% as well. Horses, about 2%. And that's interesting because generally speaking, horses are more used for sport, and in some instances, of course, for other types of activities, for moving of goods and what have you. And that is largely, and donkeys, less than 1%. And in total, 96%. So all the other wildlife that is out there that are mammals, so of course you can think of creatures like elephants, and you think of the tigers and lions and all the big five, that people go to Africa to go on a safari to witness, giraffes and these types of creatures, leopards and cheetahs, and of course bears would come into that field, and of course our very own agouti and our very own those types of creatures too as well, the opossums, and of course the whales that are in the water, and porpoises, cetaceans. They only make up 4% of the mass of all mammals in the world. And so that is a very stark reality in terms of the overall impact that we human beings are creating, and what we've really left for the rest of the animal kingdom, the rest of these creatures which are effectively the closest to us genetically. Not very, very, very much at all. So that is why the matter of conservation and protection of their spaces, the spaces that these creatures depend on, is also very important, because there's so much that we are still yet to know and still yet to learn. And of course, in terms of the appreciation, it really should not be that one is going to have to simply go to a zoo or some sort of enclosure to be able to see some of these creatures. They really should be enjoyed out in the wild. I think quite recently there was some killer whales in the Trinidadian waters, and that caused quite a lot of interest and a stir of interest there. Of course, we depend on whale watching. There are lots of individuals and businesses which depend on that kind of activity right here in our very own waters. So it is really important that we spare a thought perhaps for some of these creatures, even around times like Journée Creole. That's all the time we have today here at the Lunchroom, and we do hope that we can come back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program. Of course, God willing, I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.